I did leave out of the video is just showing pressing the feet into the clay. So what I have here is just a quick slab of some water-based clay. This can be oil-based clay as well. I just had a extra bag of white clay. And ignore the rivet molds on the side. It's the only board I can grab. So in general, when you had that piece like it is now, this was just the one of the extra SAF's feet that I had. And I just want to be casting, I don't need much of it, I don't need the full thing. So I'm generally going to press it into the clay about that far. Since I was normally doing with these multiples, I would space them all out evenly, but it's just as simple as lightly pressing the mold and then moving some of the clay around it. Now you can come back in with, obviously tools and flatten out and scrape, make sure that's all nice and even, but really it's not that important to get this flat and smooth. You're just getting the detail you want on the top. As long as this has enough out, ooh, and don't do that. Yeah, don't get check your fingers. But in general, we can clean that right out. So, not a big deal. Just a little bit of water and a brush. I'm not going to clean it right now. I just pressed it in. Good amount. Now I won't need all of this, but it's good to have a little excess for. Yeah. So that's the only part I left out, was just when I was pressing the model kit part into the clay before I put the square box around it and sealed it. Here you've already seen it all boxed up in the video section, but what I did is when I placed all the feet in to the clay, I would put the square box around it, and then I would release with just any kind of general basic releases. I'm a fan of the universal mold release from Smooth On. Man's very good. Anything that's not too greasy and oily. We just want a light dusting before you're going to mold it. So a little light spray in, let it air and dry for a couple minutes, and then it's good to go pour the silicone, which was the part in between here that I didn't have in the original video. So light dusting of release before you pour the silicone. What I'm pouring here is a Mold Max 40. It's a pretty decent shore hardness. It doesn't inhibit when cured on most products. It takes a long time to cure, which means less need for degassing and evacuation, and most people can do it at home. I think it's a 10% activator ratio. You can skip a lot of this digging out and just take it right to like a tub of water if you're not doing two sides, and just pop it in. It won't affect the plastic in any way, and all the water-based clay will just clean itself out. Clean out the rest with water in the tub and let dry or air hose before casting any materials. Pictured here is just some urethane I happen to have around. It's very good, I like it, but any kind of general urethane plastics will be great for casting. If there's anything that'll be like a 20, 40 minute to an hour set, would be perfect for this. I'll link them down in the description, but most of these urethanes are going to be a 1-to-1 by weight or by volume. Make sure you read the instructions carefully because they can be drastically different. But you can see me here just weighing out in general equal amounts of A and B. Mixing them together till they are even and uniform in color, and then pouring. So here, I'm going to show the epoxy application in a second, but instead of texturing it and going too crazy, generally what I do is I have a few different texture tools. Some of them I designed myself for sculpting and pores, and for sculpting skin tones and textures, but sometimes it ends up working very good. This is a cracked land, little acrylic glass texture roller. These are some indented rollers I designed in ZBrush and then printed. We'll show you some of that. So in general with the epoxy, once I have the epoxy set and I have plastic wrap, I'll give just a very simple, sometimes as simple as that, and then we can blend it down and texture and just kind of play around with what do we got? What kind of texture tools do I have? And then, throwing the paint over the top of that. The paint medium, like the your diorama, paints and acrylics and glues and stuff like that. But in general, it's just a nice, easy, simple roll to get some base texture going, and then sculpt with the epoxy after that. So I'll show some more of that, but I wanted to make sure I had enough time to show you a quick roll of, just how honestly just easy that is. I'll link that roller in the description, but I always like that one. It's supposed to be an ice cracked surface, but definitely it can be like dry land, dry lake bed and stuff like that. Get some epoxy on here. So these are the little square, I don't remember if they are 3-inch, about 3-inch or 2-inch cubes, wood blocks I just got off Amazon a long time ago. This one my daughter had drawn on way back when I think she was 1, so 7 years ago. But there's also nice little wooden bases like that as well. In general, what I'm going to be doing is using, in this case, Pro Epoxy. It's a bit expensive, but you can use Epoxy Sculpt, which I'll go grab in a second. Epoxy Sculpt as well if we got a lot of time. If I'm letting it sit overnight, I'll do that. But I just wanted to show this as a quicker example then grabbing the epoxy sculpt. Use that to cut, and then I'll be using just any kind of generic plastic wrap over the top of there. So now I'm just gonna get going on it, and we'll probably time lapse it, and I'll show you once I'm done mixing it. With most epoxies, putties, and dough, you want to go ahead and mix them out until the color is even throughout and no streaks or lines. So I lost some of the audio here. Hopefully this will be okay. What I'm doing is I'm placing out a good amounts evenly onto the wood of the epoxy while it's still set, keeping it away from the edges, and I just lightly move it out to there, and then make sure it's all even to what thickness I want. Sometimes I'll make one side a little bit uneven. If I'm trying for really flat, I'll do a lot less and just line it out and roll it so that it is an even thickness. And here, once I've had it evened out, I place the saran wrap plastic wrap over the top. This will help prevent sticking, because the epoxy putty is still pretty sticky. You don't want it getting all jammed up in your texture tool. So it won't stick to the plastic. You could even just leave this plastic on the whole time and texturing. Sometimes you want to take it off to see what it looks like underneath, as you can see right here. Nice close look at the details and the structure from that one texture roller. Looks like I'm going back in with some of the other 3D print ones to make it even. A lot of times, I mean, I could use, you know, just hand tools at this point, maybe even just another rock to make it a little uneven. In general, this will be very basic because I will use an acrylic diorama paint afterwards to add the rest of the texture. You see here I am grabbing the feet from my feet bin. I'm just using the standard SAS for this example. And what I'm going to do is go grab one of my already done kits, or halfway done, just so you can get a first kind of base placement. Like I'll put it on the base display and kind of feel out my pose, and just lightly press down the feet and then take it off. So I have a minor indentation, kind of like a marking of where I want to press more. So now I will go in deeper with the stamps, and you know, even just slightly shallow or very deep, like if they're sinking into the mud and I want that look to happen afterwards. In this case, I'm just doing a nice light press down to give a nice impression so the feet will lock in on display. Now this epoxy is rather quick setting, about 20-15 minutes depending on thickness, so you don't have a lot of time to texture and detail it out. This one I will just be using a diorama paint over the top and add some texture later. So this was just to get the impressions of the feet and use an example. It looks like I'm going to go back in with the feet without the plastic. They're a little sticky, as you can see, but it helps at this point, because this epoxy sets up so fast. You can get away with this without it peeling away and moving. With epoxy sculpt, I would not do this, and or at least use a little bit of a release, use some water, something that keeps it from sticking to your texture tools. Again, so I lost all this audio. I believe I was just describing, showing you the reference of epoxy sculpt, magic sculpt. These are long cure epoxy putties, 1-to-1. You can have all night to work on them until the next day, so you definitely have time to sit down, work out the exact amount you need, texture, add bits of wood, add skulls, rocks, whatever you want into there before this. But this one at this point is already set up, and you know, I can do barely anything else with this. It's pretty much done. Same thing with any kind of wood structures, I believe. You can just put this epoxy on, it will bond to the wood, no problem. And it will be permanent, so you know, be confident with what you're doing, but you can always grind it off with a sander or cut it. Could be cool, but there you have it. Here's an example of one that's mostly been finished. I'll probably actually paint it. This was really just the, I was being a little bit lazy, so I did some fun stuff. This you can see right here is the front foot, and that's the back heel there. So it's like it's stepping, walking up across some stones. It's going to be for this, which is already in the pose for it, as you can see. And then I can super glue if I want, or epoxy it in, but usually I'll just put some silicone tape in there, but you can see it just locking in so nice without much real effort. It's not going to stand on its own right away, but it gives you a place to start. With this, let me get it. While this was setting, sorry for the brightness, I'll use this as like a little pumicey stone paste. I'll stipple that across, get a little bit of texture on the surface of this, and then I just went out inside and tossed a bunch of light, non-wet sand, like dry sand, just outside road sand onto the top of it, and it gave a nice, you know, already kind of a textured paint to it. And I'll do some washes on this and painting, but you know, very basic. That dirt's definitely stuck in there forever. It's like putting glitter over glue, but that's generally what I like to put on ground texture after. It starts white, but white's a good place to start. Sometimes I use this for snow too, little small areas. But yeah, looks pretty good. I think I'm happy with this even as it is. A little bit of washes through here, get rid of some of the gray and white. Maybe I'll put some moss, maybe one little bit of tuft of weeds coming out of the cracks. Don't know. But that's kind of the end result of how something can be done quick. I did this in from start to finish, was about 40 minutes with the Propoxy. So you can get bases done pretty quick. And what I'll do is I'll paint a very matte black over this, or I'll sand all this down and stain it, depending on what look I'm going for. And that's where I leave the rest of the wood, unfinished, stained, or painted black. Well, thank you for watching this far, and hopefully this can be useful to some people or anyone to help with their bases and dioramas and just epoxy use in general in model building. All right, thank you so much. See you in the next one.